Ladies and gentlemen, listen, success isn't reserved for the special, it's reserved for the disciplined. You don't need to be born with money, you don't need to have connections, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. But you do need one thing, discipline, because discipline is the bridge between where you are now and where you're destined to be. I'm not talking about punishment, I'm talking about self-governance. I'm talking about the ability to command yourself before life commands you. Let me give you 4 principles that prove discipline is everything. Let me tell you something that will change your life if you let it sink deep into your spirit. Discipline is the path to mastery. Not talent, not potential, not intelligence, discipline, because talent without discipline produces wasted potential. Intelligence without discipline produces inconsistent results. And potential without discipline produces pain. It's only when you take consistent, intentional action over time that you produce mastery, and mastery is what multiplies your value in the marketplace. We live in a world addicted to instant gratification. People want microwave success in a slow-cooked world. They want 6-figure months with 6-second effort. They want viral content without consistent creation. And when they don't get the results they hoped for, they blame the strategy, they blame the coach, they blame the algorithm, but they never stop to ask if they were disciplined enough to stay the course. You can't dabble your way into greatness, you can't be casual and become a category king. Nobody stumbles into mastery. You become a master by choosing discipline over comfort, day after day, week after week, year after year. Discipline is what keeps you on the track when your emotions want to throw you off the train. Discipline says, I don't care if you feel tired, do it anyway. Discipline says, I don't care if nobody is watching, be excellent anyway. Discipline says, I don't care if it's not going viral, add value anyway. That's what separates those who get paid millions from those who are still playing small. The people at the top didn't just get there because of luck. They outdid discipline and outlast the people who gave up when it got uncomfortable. They embraced the process that most people run from, because here's the truth, the process is the price you pay for the promise. God will give you the vision, but you've got to walk through the discipline to see it come to life. Faith without works is dead. Belief without action is delusion. The word says, he that is faithful in little will be ruler over much. That's discipline. That's being excellent when the room is empty, so you're ready when the stadium is full. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you want to master the skill of sales. Most people read one book, maybe watch a few videos, and say, sales isn't for me. But the disciplined person makes 100 calls a day for 100 days straight. They don't just learn the script. They live it, they practice, they get feedback, they improve, they get rejected, and they keep going. Eventually, they reach the point where they can close deals with clarity and confidence, not because they're smarter, but because they've repeated the right behaviors long enough to turn skill into instinct. That's mastery. Now let's talk about business. A lot of folks want to launch a coaching program or build a brand. They have the vision, but no vehicle to deliver it with consistency. They post once and wonder why nobody's buying. They launch a funnel and it doesn't convert, so they quit. Why? Because they didn't understand that the grind before the gold requires discipline, that your first funnel is probably not going to be your best funnel, that your first video is probably going to be trash, but the disciplined person keeps showing up, keeps learning, keeps refining, because mastery is not built in the moment, it's built in the momentum. Mastery is when you've done it so many times, under so many conditions, that the results become predictable. And let me tell you something else. When your results become predictable, your income becomes unshakable. Do you know why some people struggle to charge high-ticket prices? It's not because the market can't afford it. It's because they haven't developed the mastery to deserve it. The market doesn't pay for effort. The market pays for expertise. The market rewards results, and results come from disciplined repetition of high-value actions. Let me give you a Myronism right now. You don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring in the time you spend. And you can't bring value you haven't mastered, period. So if you want to rise, if you want to be known, if you want to lead, if you want to win, don't chase hacks, don't chase hype, don't chase what's hot this month. Chase discipline, commit to the boring, the unseen, the uncelebrated, because the road to mastery is paved with repetition, the late nights, the early mornings, the silent hours where nobody claps, nobody cheers, and nobody notices, but you do the work anyway. That's how mastery is formed, not by what you do once, but by what you do daily. So if you're waiting for your breakthrough, let me ask you, have you mastered what you've been given? Have you stewarded your gift with daily discipline? Have you put in the reps when nobody was watching? Because when discipline becomes your identity, mastery becomes inevitable. And once you become a master, nobody can take that from you, not the market, not the haters, not the economy. Discipline builds something the world can't break, and that's why discipline is the path to mastery. Most people think discipline is bondage. They think it's restriction. They think it's control, but I came to tell you today, discipline doesn't take your freedom. It gives it to you. In fact, there is no true freedom without discipline. That's not just a principle of success. That's a law of life. See, the enemy has lied to us. We've been taught that freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. But let me ask you, how's that working out for most people? People who do whatever they want with their money are broke. People who do whatever they want with their body are sick. People who do whatever they want with their time are stuck. That's not freedom. That's bondage wearing a freedom costume. True freedom isn't the absence of responsibility. It's the presence of order, structure, and alignment in your habits, in your thoughts, in your priorities. That's what discipline produces. And when you have that, you're not a slave to your feelings, your bills, your calendar, or your circumstances. You've been set free by your own decisions. Let's break this down. Discipline with your money creates financial freedom. I've met people who earn 6 and 7 figures but have no peace because they have no discipline. They spend as fast as they earn. They look rich but live paycheck to paycheck. That's not freedom. That's a high-income prison. But when you're disciplined, when you create a budget, when you invest consistently, when you delay gratification, you start to build true wealth. And that wealth starts to work for you. Now your money doesn't own you. You own it. You don't serve money. Money starts to serve you. That's freedom. You're not waking up stressed about bills. You're not controlled by your job. You've got options, and options are the offspring of discipline. Now let's talk about time. Time is the most valuable resource you've got, and most people waste it like it's unlimited. They sleep in, scroll endlessly, binge Netflix, procrastinate, and then wonder why they feel overwhelmed and behind. That's not freedom. That's chaos. Discipline with your time means you tell your day where to go before it gets stolen by someone else's agenda. It means you have a schedule. It means you prioritize what matters over what's urgent. It means you build routines that serve your goals, not just your moods. When you live that way, you buy your time back. You're not rushing, you're not reactive, and you're not burned out. You move through life with purpose, with peace, with power, because you've created margin. That's freedom. That's the result of discipline. Let's take it deeper. Discipline with your thoughts gives you emotional and spiritual freedom. Most people are prisoners of their minds. They're stuck in fear, doubt, anxiety, negativity, and they think they have no control over it. But the Bible says, take every thought captive. That means you have the authority to tell your thoughts what to do, but authority without discipline is just theory. When you're disciplined in renewing your mind, when you meditate on truth, when you reject lies, when you speak life over yourself, you break free from strongholds that have been holding your family captive for generations. You walk in identity, you walk in boldness, you walk in purpose. You don't shrink back because of fear. You step up in faith. That's not a motivational quote. That's kingdom living, and it's made possible through discipline. Now I want to talk to the entrepreneurs. Discipline in your business creates time freedom and income freedom, but here's the catch. It doesn't feel like freedom at first. Building a business takes work. Discipline is waking up early to serve your clients. It's following up even when you don't feel like it. It's creating content when nobody's liking, nobody's sharing, and nobody's buying. Discipline is sowing the seeds even when there's no sign of a harvest. But here's the beauty: when you stay disciplined long enough, momentum shows up, your brand grows, your systems get stronger, your team expands, and now you've built a machine that works for you even when you're not working. That's freedom, and it was bought with the currency of discipline. Here's what you've got to understand. Discipline is the gatekeeper of your destiny. It may look like a restriction from the outside, but on the inside, it's a gift. It's the structure that holds your greatness. It's the wall that protects your peace. It's the guardrail that keeps your purpose from running off the road. And when you live a disciplined life, you don't just get results. You get authority. You become someone others want to follow, because people are drawn to freedom, and freedom shines brightest on a life built on discipline. So here's the real question: do you want temporary comfort or permanent freedom? Because discipline will make you uncomfortable today to set you free tomorrow. That's why successful people wake up early, not because it feels good, but because they've chosen freedom over comfort. That's why successful people invest in coaching, not because they need motivation, but because they value structure. That's why they schedule their day, guard their focus, and manage their energy, not because they have to, but because they've seen what life looks like on the other side of discipline. And if you want to join them, it starts with a decision, not a feeling, not a wish, a decision. So decide today: I will no longer be a slave to distraction. I will no longer be bound by inconsistency. I will no longer let comfort rob me of my calling. I choose discipline, because discipline is the door to freedom, and freedom is worth everything. Fear is a liar, and doubt is its cousin. Both are enemies of progress, enemies of purpose, enemies of the life God called you to live. But here's the truth: they don't have to win. You can defeat them, not with hype, not with luck, and not just with hope, but with something far more powerful and sustainable: discipline. See, a lot of people think that fear has to be felt before it can be defeated, that you've got to conquer fear in your emotions before you can move. But that's not how it works. You don't defeat fear by feeling brave. You defeat fear by doing what fear told you not to do. You beat doubt by staying in motion when doubt whispers, "You're not ready." You override hesitation with action, and that action, when repeated and sustained, is called discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel, and that's a blessing, because if you wait until you feel confident, you'll never move. But discipline gets up early when your emotions want to sleep in. Discipline makes the call when doubt says they're going to say no. Discipline keeps showing up even when fear says, "What if you fail?" The discipline don't lack fear. They've just learned to move anyway. Let me say this clearly: discipline is not the absence of fear. It's the habit of doing the right thing despite it. It's saying, even if I feel unqualified, I'll take the next step. Even if I feel unsure, I'll follow through. Even if I'm nervous, I'll act like I belong. Because I do. Most people wait for permission, from the world, from their peers, from some invisible authority, to take action. But what they don't realize is that every time they hesitate, fear gets stronger. Every time they back down, doubt grows louder. That's the enemy's plan: keep you stuck in second, guessing until you bury your gift and call it realism. But discipline shuts that voice up, because when you're disciplined, you've built up a track record. You've got evidence, you've got momentum, and nothing silences fear faster than a history of showing up and doing what needs to be done. When you've been disciplined long enough, fear starts to lose its grip. Why? Because discipline produces confidence, not because everything goes right, but because you've trained yourself to respond no matter what goes wrong. Let me give you a kingdom principle: your feelings are not facts. And your fear is not the final say. The Word says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. That sound mind is rooted in self-control. That's discipline. Discipline aligns you with your calling, even when your emotions try to lead you astray. It says, I will not negotiate with doubt. I will not entertain fear. I will obey God's instruction even when I don't see all the outcomes. Let's talk practically. Let's say God gave you a business idea. You're excited on Monday, overwhelmed by Tuesday, and doubting yourself by Thursday. That's normal. That's how fear operates. It tries to kill the seed before it takes root. But discipline waters the seed. Discipline shows up on Friday and says, I'm still building. It doesn't let a bad day become a bad direction. And as you keep doing that, guess what happens? Doubt starts to decrease. Fear starts to fade. Why? Not because it stopped talking, but because you stopped listening. Discipline gives you the power to override the noise. Now, let's take it deeper. Fear thrives in inactivity. When you sit still and overthink, fear gets a front row seat. Doubt feeds off delay, but discipline is always in motion. Discipline says, I may not have all the answers, but I've got a next step, and I'm taking it. That forward motion breaks the cycle of fear. Because action breaks anxiety, movement kills paralysis, and discipline creates predictable action. You want to know how some people can walk into a room with authority, speak with clarity, and lead with power. It's not because they never feel afraid. It's because they've developed the discipline of preparation, the discipline of consistency, the discipline of obedience. Let me give you a Myronism. You don't rise to the level of your feelings. You fall to the level of your training. And training requires discipline, so the more disciplined you become, the more equipped you are to face fear, not because you feel ready, but because you're prepared. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs hope they'll perform well. Professionals discipline themselves to become great before they ever hit the stage. Fear may still knock on their door, but discipline answers it with a smile and says, we've got this covered. And don't miss this. When you defeat fear with discipline, you don't just gain confidence. You gain authority. You become someone other people want to follow because you've proven that you can lead yourself. And nobody can lead others who hasn't first mastered the discipline of leading themselves. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with fear and just did what God told you to do? What could you create, build, or become if you stopped waiting for doubt to disappear and started moving in discipline? Here's your answer. Everything God promised you would become possible, because your future doesn't depend on your feelings. It depends on your discipline. So stop waiting to feel fearless. Start choosing discipline, because discipline defeats fear and doubt every single time. Everybody wants wealth, but very few people want to pay the price to build it. And let me tell you, the price is not hustle, it's not luck, and it's not just grinding yourself into the ground. The price is discipline, because no matter how much money you make, if you don't have discipline, you'll lose it. No matter how much opportunity you're given, without discipline, you'll waste it. That's why discipline is not just a good habit, it's the foundation of wealth. If you look at the wealthiest, most successful people in the world, people who have created empires, legacies, and impact, you'll see that they are highly disciplined individuals. They don't just show up when they feel like it. They don't spend money emotionally. They don't let distraction determine their direction. They live by principles. They operate on systems. They move by intention, not impulse. And that's what discipline does. It puts you in command of your life instead of being a casualty of your circumstances. You can't build wealth by accident. You don't stumble into a 7-figure bank account. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have passive income pouring in. Wealth is built, and building requires structure. Foundation, repetition, and that's what discipline provides. Let's break it down. Wealth isn't just about money. Wealth is about multiplication. It's about turning your time into income, your income into assets, and your assets into legacy. But here's the truth. You cannot multiply what you will not manage, and you cannot manage consistently without discipline. Discipline with your money means you know where every dollar is going. You've got a budget. You've got financial goals. You've got boundaries. You don't spend to impress. You spend to increase. You don't buy to escape. You invest to grow. That's how you shift from living paycheck to building generational wealth. It starts with discipline, not income, because income without discipline becomes indulgence, but income with discipline becomes investment, and investment is how wealth begins to build momentum. Now, let's talk about time. Time is the most valuable currency you've got. You can always get more money, but you can never get more time. That's why wealthy people treat time like a sacred resource. They guard it, they plan it, they optimize it. They don't waste hours scrolling and binging. They invest their time into things that create value. That's discipline. You want to build wealth. You've got to start mastering your mornings. You've got to start controlling your calendar. You've got to stop letting other people's priorities rob you of your future. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by discipline. And when you get disciplined with your time, you gain something priceless: focus. And focus is the fuel for financial growth. Here's what most people don't realize. Discipline isn't limiting, it's liberating. When you're disciplined, you're not enslaved to your habits. You're not stuck in survival mode. You're not reacting all the time. You're responding with wisdom. You're making decisions based on purpose, not pressure. That creates peace. And that peace gives you the capacity to see opportunities clearly, move on them quickly, and capitalize on them confidently. Think about this. How many people have had million-dollar ideas but never had the discipline to execute? How many people had the chance to build wealth but lost it because they couldn't control their spending, or stick to their plan, or stay the course when it got boring? See, the enemy of wealth isn't lack, it's leak. It's not what you don't have, it's what you keep losing through undisciplined living. Money leaks, time leaks, energy leaks, and the only thing that seals the leak is discipline. Let's take it spiritual. The Bible says, "He who is faithful in little will be faithful in much." That's another way of saying discipline attracts increase. If you want God to trust you with more, you've got to show him you can steward what you already have. If you can't be disciplined with hundreds, why would he give you thousands? If you can't handle a client, why would he send you a company? Discipline is the evidence that you're ready for overflow, and let me say this clearly, wealth is not just about you. It's about what you can do for others. It's about impact, generosity, legacy, but you cannot pour out if your cup is empty. You can't fund the kingdom if you can't fund your rent. You can't feed nations if you're still being fed. So stop thinking of discipline as restriction. Start seeing it as preparation. Discipline is what builds the vessel strong enough to hold the blessing. So here's the real question. Do you want to look wealthy, or do you want to be wealthy? Because looking wealthy is easy, just swipe a card, but being wealthy requires discipline, it requires consistency, it requires delayed gratification, it requires you to say no to short-term comfort so you can say yes to long-term abundance. You don't get wealthy by doing what's easy. You get wealthy by doing what's necessary. And doing what's necessary over and over without excuse is called discipline. So if you're ready to build something that lasts, if you're ready to stop living check to check and start building check to legacy, don't chase the money, chase the discipline, because the money will follow a disciplined life. Remember this, discipline is the foundation of wealth. Lay it down strong, build on it daily, and watch what God does through you. So here's my challenge to you. Make discipline your default. Make it your identity. Speak it over yourself. I am a disciplined person. I do what others won't, so I can live how others can't. Don't just clap at this message. Commit to it. Because at the end of the day, it's not your dreams, your ideas, or your hustle that separates you. It's your discipline, and discipline is everything.